And thank you, Isha, for the warm welcome. It's great to be back here with everyone this morning, and I'm really excited about our panel. And so what I would like to do is to introduce you to two remarkable individuals whose stories I think are really powerful, and the work that they've been doing as well is really moving our world forward. So want to be able to highlight that. With that, it's my pleasure to introduce to you Joshua Brister. So Joshua is now the interim president at the Maine Black Chamber of Commerce, I believe our first official Maine Black Chamber of Commerce. Is that accurate? All right. I think that deserves a round of applause. Big movement here for us. He's also a proud U.S. Navy veteran, and his dedication to community and team building shines not only through his leadership, but also in his passion for sports as the owner of the semi-pro women's basketball team, the LA Maples, who are also awesome. If you've not been to a game, it's a really fun time. Joshua's commitment to fostering growth and unity is a true inspiration to all of us here in Maine, and he's a really important force for us. I'm also honored to introduce Malik Hall. Malik is the founder of Teach to Move and the defensive line coach at the University of Pennsylvania. Malik has helped his team clinch 2 Ivy League championships. That's pretty impressive. His extensive coaching background includes roles at Wagner College, Fordham, Hofstra, Central Connecticut State, and the University of Massachusetts. Off the field, Malik is deeply committed to supporting students and families in his community. Understanding the stress and expense of going back to school, his organization, Teach to Move, has teamed up with community leaders and major organizations like Staples and Walmart Health and Wellness. And together, they provide essential items such as new shoes, book bags, and school supplies to students in need. And so please join me in giving a warm welcome to these two incredible gentlemen, Josh Brister and Malik Hall. We get to sit. Check 1, 2. Yeah, that was a no.
Hello, 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 hello. I think we're good. Hello.
Oxen free.
I think we're here.
Hello. We got me now.
There we
Excellent. Terrific. So we're really going to pursue a little bit of a fireside chat today, sans the fire. But I think it'll be an enjoyable experience for all. And really our goal is to talk a little bit about entrepreneurship and small businesses and the roles that they play in creating a diverse economy here. And so with that, I'm going to pose some questions to you, gentlemen. The first one is, I'd like it if you could just take us back to your childhood. And talk a little bit about the role small businesses played in keeping you connected to your community.
Long time ago. So for me, my childhood included, I'm telling people nowadays that for me, as a man of color that grew up in America, I'm pretty proud of my upbringing. It's taken some time to get to that place. But for me, I was born in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, which is south. Black entrepreneurship for me in the 80s and 90s as a young kid growing up played a substantial part in my upbringing. With developing the Maine Black Chamber of Commerce with myself and the other 8 founders, we often talk about our childhood and how important being able to go to a Black-owned grocer was, going to a Black dentist, and having a bank where when it was payday, you went and you saw 95% of the Black community utilizing that bank. So that's what it meant for me. I think as I fast forward 40 plus years and with all the live life experiences, I think it's put me in a place to realize just how important that is. So.
For me, my name is Malik. Obviously, I'm from Detroit, Michigan. And being from Detroit in the 80s and being raised in Detroit in the 80s when the auto plant was booming, it contextualized the middle class for me when I look back at it in hindsight. And so going to college was a thing. Sure, the state of Michigan has 15 plus state universities and colleges. But to graduate from high school and find yourself in the workforce, but in the workforce that not only provides you a suitable living, but a financial mobility that just doesn't stop in 10 years. And so obviously everyone knows the plants had shifted. And so being a part of that shift in my childhood to seeing a Black thriving middle class, to seeing how the plants exiting the city not only hurt um, a specific uh, ethnic group, but it hurt the entire state. It hurt the entire city. But what it also did, it was a cliff to where if you graduated from high school, there's no longer a pipeline to find yourself a middle class worker, to find yourself with the American dream, a house, picket fence, and dog, if you may, right? And so that moving and being an athlete on top of it. And so all of those culminated for me moving out east and just seeing how commerce shifted in such a dramatic way in the Midwest, whether it's Pittsburgh, Ohio, Michigan, Chicago, and finding myself in Maine where we're committed to the middle class and commerce of the state. And so, you know, if you see me publicly, I'm always gonna have something Maine on because it doubles down on that commerce. But I'm from Michigan. But Maine has claimed me and I'm claiming Maine now.
I like to hear that. Excellent. So Joshua, specifically, congratulations again on founding the Maine State Black Chamber of Commerce. Can you talk a little bit about how this initiative could help Maine's Black community grow?
Oh, in so many ways. For myself, I always try to do. I think it's a disservice to say Josh founded this. Malik, Nolan, Dennis, Elijah, Aisha, Diane. It's a group of 14, right? I'm just kind of the person that was selected to go out and get it done. So I always want to kind of correct the record with that. As far as how the Maine Black Chamber, I'm not going to say how we can, how we already are. We used to meet in a black barbershop in Lewiston. Years ago, we sat at GP Cog and had a meeting. So this is every step along the way, we've talked about how we can do a couple things here, right? We believe in a strong Black middle class. And in order for that to happen, you have to have a couple things. You need to have a solid Black voting bloc that understands their duty and almost ancestral role when it comes to advocacy for themselves. The gentleman before us did a great job of talking about youth, and I want to kind of echo what he's saying to everybody in here. If you don't take anything away from me talking today or anything I said, you're doing yourself a great disservice if you don't have 5 or 10 of Maine's youth in your pocket. That's from a mentorship standpoint. That's from a commerce standpoint. That's from a sanity standpoint. As a father with teenage kids, very much working with the youth in my day-to-day role with Maine Black Chamber keeps me abreast of all the things. And it also does something for the state of Maine, DCD. I think everybody in this room knows we're trying to replace 75,000 people in the workforce. And what we've had the opportunity to do as the Maine Black Chamber is put ourselves and our members into high schools and college campuses. And that has allowed for the growing new American population, which I actually hate that word. It has allowed for that community and the community of the descendant of chattel slavery, as I say, to kind of find a common ground and work together. One of the biggest things we talk about with our members who span 10 of Maine's 16 counties make up every shade of Black. In order for us to move forward as a solid Black middle class here, we need everybody that shares my pigmentation in skin, plus race conscious allies. So we've also started to, and I know this is we hated this term, but the chamber's pulled itself up by its bootstraps. That's something we're super proud of, staying away from almost what we view as a government welfare system as Black entrepreneurs, and really doing the most with our membership dollars. We're working with just a great group of what we call Maine Future students, which, man, we've talked to probably 600 kids throughout the state of Maine. Um, with that, the biggest thing to making sure our chamber and community sustains here again is the youth and teaching them the importance behind generational wealth, and teaching them how to build that. So that's everything from working with the folks at Andrew Scoggin and MMT Bank to create savings accounts for our Maine Future folks, and working with the folks from Mimic and the WJZPs and just the membership to actually take some of the barriers out of interning for Black high school and college students, because oftentimes they'll show up to a well-intended organization, but that organization isn't prepared. And that looks like a couple different things. 90% of the time, it's the existing workforce that we've learned that's just not ready for that cultural sea change. So those are a couple things that we're doing. We pride ourselves as a chamber as being very focused on the future, because they'll sustain us. And everybody in this room is of age, and as we get older, we start to learn tricks that we don't want to let go. So as we embrace the younger students, that light bulb, so to say, goes off, and it's a conversation of, well, how did a man of color in Maine become a basketball team owner? Like, how did the chamber come about? Who's Malik? Who's Nolan? How do you guys get to walk in Augusta and talk to politicians and those type things? So just a great thing.
Perfect lead in. So Malik, a question for you. When we think about the work of the Maine Black Chamber, and we think about the diverse audience that we have in this room, how can other communities of diversity emulate what you all have created and are working towards?
I like to think of what we do as hard work. And I think being your authentic self is a starting spot. If you don't know, being authentic and saying, I'm not privy of that, I didn't even know that existed. It gives parties the ability to meet you where you are, right? So prior to, they read off my coaching career, right? I was able to become the first Black head football coach at Bates College, not because I had this it factor. It was because I had mentors behind me. I had people who went before me. I had someone who said, hey, if you interview for a head football coaching job, give me a buzz. I'll give you my tips and reminders. Like, that stuff is priceless. And it's true to who you are and your experiences. Hey, I can help you here. I cannot help you here. Right. But I also know Josh, who might be able to help you there. And so it's this idea that, like, we can create division with just looking at each other. Right. Oh, I don't wear those socks. Oh, I don't wear glasses. Division is something you don't have to work at. Collaboration is. Collaboration requires you to say, okay, wait a minute. I think I can do this. Can you do that? And now when you look up, you form a Black chamber in arguably one of the whitest states in our union, right? How do you become a Black head coach at one of the whitest schools in the state, potentially? It's because I'm not being limited by my experience. I'm growing based on who's pouring into me. So who are you pouring into? Josh made a statement, you should have 5 youth that you are mentoring socially, emotionally, leadership, entrepreneurially, and academically, right? And so that is what stops our experiences. That like destroys the glass ceiling, because my experiences are mine. But if I have someone pouring into me with their experiences coupled with mine, That's called a superpower now. And the superpower didn't happen through a conglomerate. It happened through people. It happened through hard work. And so I may not have answered the question, but the bigger picture, MOVE stands for motivation, overcoming, visualizing, and empower. That's hard work. It requires a heart to find out how to motivate people. It requires a heart to identify why they didn't overcome and where can I help. It requires heart to see vision for someone that's not you. And it requires heart to empower people that don't look like you. And so that's the answer, to be authentic, but to move with authentic heart, if that makes sense.
There's a lot of intentionality in that too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The moment that we can be true to being authentic and being intentional, you give people a space to be courageous. Think about that word, courage, courageous. Like, are you giving people spaces to be courageous and show you their authentic self? Because it's hard. This is an inclusion conference, which requires people to be authentic, which requires you to be vulnerable. But are you posturing your heart where that vulnerability and authenticity can happen?
No, I agree with that. And I think back to almost a year and a half now, sitting at GP Cog, and it's 42 people around the round table from every aspect of life. Some of the folks in this room were in that room. And one of the biggest things we talked about was just vulnerability, right? It's a tough thing. I tell people I'm a kid of the South. In my experience, I use this for positive, but I've had a race conversation since 1983, right? That's just unfortunate. That's where I grew up at. My grandmother was a sharecropping slave. My mom and dad grew up in 63 in Louisiana. So that conversation was nothing new to me. So I think when I show up here to Maine almost 8 years ago now, I didn't have such a prickly spot. And I served in the Navy and worked Department of Defense. So I don't know how many military folks we got in here, but that's a proving ground for getting yourself out of your own way, so to say, in terms of hangups. But once I got here and we sat around that round table, the chamber didn't come as an idea until we sat around that round table, and just everybody was vulnerable. We had what I call a traditional Mainer, which is a Caucasian, Mainer. We had a group of those. We had a group of Black folks, Asians, Mexicans, business owners, like bank folks, everybody. And the biggest thing was just the vulnerability and the honestness, because without that, we couldn't have talked about the hurdles that people see in business. And we kind of naively, it was about 9 Black business owners from around the state that went into that meeting thinking that we were the only ones to see financing, funding hurdles. And we're sitting there with 4 to 5 other white business owners, and they're like, wait, no, us too, right? So for us, that vulnerability allowed for their vulnerability, and ours allowed for our community and theirs to merge in a very tough space. And we've moved forward with them ever since. And one last point, I just want to kind of tie to what Malik's saying. In our first year and a half as a chamber, we have made leaps and bounds by being vulnerable, telling other communities and ecosystems that we try to tie in with. Look, we don't know. The often question we get is, how do you compare yourself to other chambers of commerce? And we're like, man, we don't know. Ask our great grandkids in like 100 years, right? Like, we're in year 1, where other chambers were started when they were still lighting lanterns to get a meeting off. So it's a tough thing, but vulnerability, when you walk into any room, lets the guard down from anybody. And especially as a man of color walking in Maine, I've learned that. I've learned, hey, we all struggle from the same issues, whether it be internally. I like to say this, when I get in a room, none of us are products of generational wealth, because we wouldn't be sitting in this room right now if we were, right? So that's what the vulnerability aspect does. It allows people to strip all that away and say, okay, I'm me, you're you. Let me hear what you need compared pair with what I need and see how we can move forward from there.
Terrific. Thank you both so much for those responses. They were really thoughtful. So it has been amazing to see in recent years the increase in businesses owned and operated by people from racially diverse backgrounds across the state of Maine. Could I ask you to talk about how Maine's business community and its people and consumers specifically can support our local businesses owned by individuals from diverse backgrounds?
Yeah, I won't pose this question, but this is a exercise we often pose. It's a lot of people in here, but I mean, think to yourself, if you, again, to my teen college kid point, if you're not operating with at least 3 to 5 Black and minority-owned businesses in your daily life, then you're not even off of the couch, so to say. Again, it's 2024. We've grew up in a country that, for good or worse, has thrusted racism in front of our eyes and race. So I think it's incumbent on everybody in here. I don't have to grab this microphone and tell you what you need to do for Black businesses. Either you're going to do it or don't. That's not my job. So if you don't know 3 to 5 Black businesses and you want to help Black businesses, take your phone out. Like, everybody has a computer in their pocket, right? Again, I won't put nobody on the spot, but I can probably poll everybody in here and ask 2 questions. Name the last 3 Black businesses you've been to, and name 5 Black businesses that you know of. Again, I won't put anybody on the spot. But Maine does a horrible job. I see Phoenix's face. Hey, Phoenix, good to see you. We do a horrible job at tracking information here in the state of Maine. That's no shot to anybody, but we don't know how many white businesses there are. I mean, I'm sure we can, but that's just not something we can quickly come to. But if you want to help communities that don't look like you here, you need to engage with them. Just that simple. It's no talking points around it. Get in your car and go see Ty C, the Jamaican place in Saco, right? Or, you know, do a whole host of things. Listen to WJZP, try Black Travel Maine, come see a LA Maples game. Yeah, I'm astonished at the amount of people I meet in the state that don't know that there's a women's basketball team here. And Maine is in the top 5 in 50 states of the game of women's basketball. Somebody just got drafted to the WNBA from Maine, from little old Gorham. So until you're actually spending your dollars in Black businesses, nothing you're going to do or say will help my community. As a Black man of 41, almost 42 years old, who grew up in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, everybody in this room knows commerce and that green piece of paper makes this world go round. We talk about this often. May 15th, it's a call to action. We invite everybody. We are very candid in how we talk about developing a solid Black middle class here. We cannot do that without the faces in this room taking your wallets and purses out and putting money down. That's it. One more thing. I just want to hammer this home because we are in Inclusion Maine, and it's some great information that's being given out here. But I'm not looking to hire anyone right now. I'm not looking to talk to whoever's in the lobby. My sole purpose to be here today is to tell you to spend your money with people that do not look like you. I don't care if it's a Wabanaki tribe. We love them too. But if you are going to get your hair done and it's at that same salon, you got to go find something different. And the reason I use hair is because I showed up here as a late age, 30-something-year-old Black guy that moved here from downtown New Orleans. I had a choice of barbers. And I get here and people look at me like I'm crazy. But I couldn't walk around without a haircut. I couldn't drive to Boston every week to get this touch-up I got. I had to go sit my chocolate butt down in a person's chair that does not look like me, that had never cut my hair before. I know that's funny, I know that's funny, but if we took this whole room and transported it to Tanzania and we all had a conference tomorrow where we had to look our best and half of you had to get your hair done, you would be so lost. Instead of just simply pulling your purse out and trusting that person and your wallet out. So again, I won't beat a dead horse. I try to take as much time as I can. Use your money at businesses that do not look like you.
Excellent. And so I am getting waved down a little bit here on time, but I
And I got a
also
hard
really
attitude.
want Malik to be able to have an opportunity to weigh in because I saw that you had some comments that you were contemplating sharing with all of us, and it's important for
It
that to
goes
be heard.
back to heart work, right? And it's a cliche, but your money goes where your heart goes.
100%.
And add into that, at some point, like we're not doing this to see fruit in our lifetime potentially. We're planting a seed that has to go through a lot of manure to crack that protective shell and then grow some roots. And then maybe a kid that we're servicing who goes off to Kobe or UMaine comes back and says, hey, I want to be the president of the BCC, Maine Black Chamber. Like that is what this looks like. It doesn't look like a immediate, okay, what does, like, who are you pouring into? What companies are you pouring into? I've only become a black head football coach because if you turn on ESPN, the narrative is it's hard to find black qualified football coaches. We're not even talking about football here. We're just talking about people. How to give people opportunity that you want for your people and for your people and your people and your people, right? It's that deal. And once we identify that we all are wanting, we all want the same thing, and that is enough to go around, that's when you start seeing empowerment. And empowerment is infectious and contagious, right? But it has to be authentic because everyone can, like he was saying, like I had to learn how to be authentic and how to use my heart because I was a football coach. Like, hey, we'll write a check. But I had to break all of that down and say, what would it look like if I brought my football team? It changes everything because the football team is very diverse and they're showing up at an elementary school or they're showing up at the park to clean up, just to clean up the park in Lewiston, Kennedy Park. So is again, me being authentic and me being willing to pour into a community or pour into people who are not my people per se. And that's inclusion.
Excellent. Thank you both so much. I really wish we had far longer than a half an hour because I feel like we could have filled a few hours having a conversation. But I just want to echo the sentiment, right? We all have the ability to support racially diverse businesses across Maine with every single dollar that we spend. And also to remember that every dollar that we spend is a vote too. So keep that in mind as you're making your decisions in life about the ways you spend your money. I don't think we have time to take questions, do we? Oh,
Yeah,
Bill,
I got a hard 10. It's dad duty today.
it's 10.
Yeah.
So
I
I
gotta-
hear,
I got a pre-K, I
unfortunately,
gotta
we're
pick up at
not
10:30.
able to take any questions.
One thing we like to leave people with when we get the chance to speak is again, Malik is the heart community person in our organization. I'm a military aviation guy by trade, so I'm usually a results driven person. But as I do this, I like to take the opportunity to let anybody know, like, if you want to intertwine or interact with our ecosystem, we encourage you. We talked to some students at CMCC the other day, and I'll make this quick. It was probably 75% Caucasian students. And the number one question we got, we were talking about interning for our chamber, which is amazing. One of the major questions we got was, hey, Mr. Brister, but I'm white. And I'm like, well, you're in this room, so you asked that question. Your heart is definitely in the right place. Interact with our ecosystem. So that goes to anybody in here. We're easy to find. It's not hard. I see quite a few members in here. So if you want to chat with any of us, definitely grab us and let us know.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, gentlemen, so much for your time.